Hi, there is a tragedy in suffering. The tragedy is not that we suffer. It's that we suffer, we survive, and then we learn nothing from it. And so as a result of that, we go through the same cycle of pain again. In psychology, we call this the compulsion loop. In other words, a compulsion loop is sort of repeating a behavior while expecting a different kind of result. In fact, the Bible calls this foolishness in the book of Proverbs. Now, if you want next year, 2026, to be different from 2025, you don't need luck. You need more wisdom. And so today I'm going to show you the method, or the psychological and biblical method, to extract the gold from your pain this year so that you will never repeat the mistakes that you've made this year ever again. I'm Dr. Victor Count. On this channel, we merge psychological science with biblical wisdom to help you flourish. If you want to build a life that actually works, make sure that you subscribe on our platform. Welcome. Welcome. So, why do we make mistakes? Or why do we repeat mistakes, rather? I think most of us live life in survival mode. When a crisis happened, let's say in this year, most of us might have experienced a number of crises, whether it's a breakup, whether it's perhaps a financial loss, it could be a conflict. And when we experience a crisis, our brain often wants to get out of the pain as fast as possible. We often, as a result of that, fail to reflect, because we just want to escape. But some scholar, one of them is Dallas Willard, he taught us that spiritual maturity is not something just magical that just happened because you confess that you are a believer in something. It is a result of reflection, reflecting on our experiences. Now, the text in one of the texts, Proverbs 1:5, tells the wise to listen. And if you notice in the text in that particular verse in Proverbs 1 verse, it says that wisdom, in other words, it's not something automatic. You don't get wiser just by getting older. You get wiser ultimately by stopping to listen to what your life is trying to teach you, because every one of us go through things. And one of the beautiful things about our experiences is that it's a way to learn, it's a way to grow. But unfortunately, a lot of people go through life repeating the same mistakes and not learning from those mistakes. And so, how do we do this? Well, we can look at the Apostle Paul, particularly in 2 Corinthians 12. Paul talks about his thorn in the flesh. He tells us that he suffered, that 3 times he prayed that this should be taken away from him. But he didn't just say that. He didn't just tell us, well, I did suffer, well, it was just bad luck. But what he did was he reframed that pain. He gloried in that tribulation. He looked back at his struggles and how the difficulties that he faced. He looked at all those and defined it as an opportunity for God's power to rest on him. Now, I think that has huge implication, because psychologically, this is what we call narrative identity. And so we have narrative therapy where, you become the editor of your own movie or your own story. And so the victim mindset in this sense could ask, why is this thing happening to me? But a flourishing mindset, a growth mindset asks, what is this revealing about me? In other words, God often allows us to hit the same wall over and over again until we finally find the door. If you keep repeating a wall in 2025, or if you keep hitting the same wall in 2025, I don't think it's a punishment. Perhaps it is a signal. If you're still repeating the same mistakes that you've repeated in previous year, and you repeated it this year that is just about to go by, perhaps it's a signal. It is time to pause and do a bit of reflection and try to stop surviving your year and start to harvest it the way it should be. And perhaps maybe this is what you could do, at least this week. I want you to sit down with perhaps a journal and write 3 specific lists. The first list, it's the lesson, the God lesson. Where did you see God sustain you when you didn't think that you would make it? Perhaps start by writing that down. The second list would be the self lesson. Look at your failures this year. This 2025, like just about to go by. We have like a couple of weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks. Did you overcommit this year? Could that have hampered you from getting ahead and doing what you were supposed to do? Did you ignore the red flags? The red flags in your relationship? Were you honest? And try to be honest about these things and try to identify the pattern. And the third thing would be the stop doing list. In other words, we always make a to-do list for a new year. Every year, people have New Year resolutions and things they want to do, things they want to aspire to do. But I want you to stop to make a stop doing list. Because based on your pain from this year, from 2025, what is the one thing that you would refuse to carry into 2025? The God list, the self list, the stop doing list. And when you write these things down, you move them from your emotional brain to your logical brain. You stop being a victim of your own year, and you can start hopefully becoming a student of it. And do not let your pain be wasted. Let it ultimately be the tuition you paid for a wiser and stronger future in 2026. And hopefully next week, I'm going to challenge you, or challenge everything that you know about New Year resolutions. I'm going to show you why I believe that willpower often fails and why having a covenant is a secret to change. I'll tell you what, you don't want to mix this one. I'm Victor Counted. Keep flourishing. See you next week. Bye.